Is weight loss better than cardio for losing body fat? Hey, everybody. I thought I would chat with you guys and gals a little bit about this today. This is going to be one of those topics that, as I've been looking at newer data, it's really fascinating to me, particularly for me as someone who used to be well over 300 pounds when younger. I will straight up tell people I originally did use cardio to lose the weight. I'm 47 now, and I did that, around age 20-ish, something like that, right? I took up distance running, and I used that to get all the way down to like 170 from at least 300. And I really didn't even track it at the time because I didn't really want to know what I weighed. Like I was ashamed of it at the time. So it's something I did way back then. And then, of course, later in life, I found it much easier. I spent a year in bed sick around age 30 or so. Had to learn to walk again. Again, I ballooned back up to close to 300, but I had also, at that point, I was a 220-pound lifter when I got sick. So it was a much different body composition than when I was younger. And I lost it much easier later because I had more muscle and lifted weights and other stuff. But I did do a lot of walking, right? Again, as I was rebuilding, I did a lot of walking. Now, that being said, I've always had an interest in that because I did originally use cardio to lose the weight. And I've tried to keep up with all the research, and I've told people, look, it's not a bad idea to do lifting and cardio for health purposes. And I've always said cardio is not necessarily that great of a weight loss tool. It lets you eat more. It's not necessary. In fact, I've gone so far as to say that a morbidly obese person, exercise is useful for losing weight, but it is absolutely not required, right? It is absolutely not required. Someone who is extremely obese can lose 100 pounds without exercising. It's just a lot harder. It's way harder, but it is not impossible. It's going to feel like it, though. But that being said, when we look at the data, I saw some stuff a while back, and I thought that was interesting. And I'm like, we've got studies now showing that, of course, lifting gives better body composition. This isn't in question. But in terms of actual fat loss, we had some studies kind of coming out showing, and I mentioned that recently, there were studies showing equal, that literally lifting weights was causing, spending the same number of minutes like at the gym. Obviously, not even counting your rest times and all that between sets, just your gym time lifting. If you spend an hour in the weight room compared to an hour of doing, stationary cardio, they were pretty much equal in terms of fat loss. But what we saw was the much, much better body composition. In other words, cardio doesn't make you gain muscle. And in fact, a lot of studies in the past have shown that when people lose weight without doing resistance training or eating a high-protein diet, it's very common for 25% of the weight they lose to be lean mass and muscle. So in other words, if you lose 40 pounds, at least 10 of it tended to be muscle on average. Okay, when we're lifting weights and increasing protein and all that stuff, guess what? Guess what happens? Sometimes 100% of it is fat loss. Like we don't lose any muscle, right? So that's always been the argument. And then the other argument, what if you gain muscle? Well, man, that's a big game changer because if look at it this way, if you lose 20 pounds and 5 of it was muscle, you only lost 15 pounds of fat. If you lose 20 pounds, but you keep all the muscle, you lost 20 pounds of fat. What if you gained 5 pounds of muscle? That meant you lost 25 pounds of fat. All right, that's a big deal. That meant even all 3 of those, even if the weight loss is the same, the fat loss could be up to 10 pounds difference with the same amount of weight lost. That's kind of an important deal. That's one reason people have said the nonsense like, well, don't worry about the scale, worry about how you, okay, fine, but you still have to lose weight if you're overweight, okay? Because you're not gaining 50 pounds of muscle. All right, that's a delusion that people have, that someone who is overweight, they're going to recomposition 50 pounds. It is biologically impossible, not going to happen. Okay, people don't understand how hard it is to gain 50 pounds of muscle in your lifetime. In fact, if you're not over 6 foot tall or using magical supplements, aka anabolics, you're not going to do it in your entire life. You could dedicate your whole life to trying to do it day in and day out for 20 years straight and not reach that goal. And I'm talking bulking and everything. Right, doing really high protein diets for 20 years straight and lifting and trying to gain weight. It's 50 pounds of muscle is a ton. It's a lot. So that's nonsense. All right. But we've got all these studies kind of showing, yeah, the body composition is way better. The fat loss seemed to be equal. But then I saw one, and I don't even have it handy. I saw it on Menno Henselman's page, like on social media, like on Facebook. And he had linked a recent study with women to where when they took some obese women and they had them only do cardio versus only weightlifting. And in that particular study, the women who lifted weights lost more fat. Like, not only did they gain more muscle, not only did they see improved body composition, we've always known that. Body fat percentage will always be better. Body composition always improves. But it's always, with some of the studies, it used to be, well, but you'll lose more fat with cardio. Well, then the studies are showing equal. But then he's got this one that he pulled up to where they literally lost more fat. Okay? That's a big deal. And it makes sense because we're burning through more calories. Gaining muscle speeds up your metabolic rate. So we deal with the epoch from the lifting. You know, lifting doesn't burn that many calories while you're doing it, but that burn later in the day does add up. People used to argue that epoch was really low, like, oh, it's only like 10 to 15% of the calories burned. That doesn't seem to be the case. Any of us who've coached lifters who track their calories closely, we know that's BS. We know what happens to their NEAT. We know what happens to their epoch, all this stuff. When they start carb loading, it gets ridiculous, right? When you guys start taking your skinny undereaters and you start bulking them up, right? We've seen what happens to their maintenance calories. They get astronomically high, even when they're doing no cardio. We know that anyone who's coached anyone knows this when you put them on really serious programming. We've all seen our kids who we coach. I call them kids. I call 22-year-olds kids, by the way. Their maintenance calories go up 1,800 calories in a year. Okay? Their amount of calories they have to eat to even maintain weight go up like 1,800. That's like what a normal person is supposed to eat. That's how much they add to their burn every day. So we have all that, but then it makes sense. They're gaining muscle and speeding up their metabolic rate. So what ends up happening is this data doesn't even surprise me at this point. That these women actually lost more body fat. Not just improved body composition more, they lost more total grams of body fat from lifting weights versus the same time investment of cardio. In addition to all the other benefits of the lifting. It's just fascinating. So it was the answer to this question is, lifting weights may be superior in general for this. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys and gals next time.